A lot of resource-based economy advocates say that economic collapse is the only way to get sufficient support for a resource-based economy. I somewhat disagree. No, I take that back. I strongly disagree. Popularizing an RBE is the only way to get support for an RBE. If most people don't know about it, then an RBE is extremely unlikely to happen. Moreover, if economic collapse is too severe, then an RBE won't happen either. Or more specifically, an RBE as envisioned by the Venus Project won't happen. After all, you can't build integrated circuits using pre-industrial age technology. But an RBE caused by economic collapse could happen since money will essentially be worthless as a result of the collapse. Unfortunately, there won't be the abundance that the Venus Project would offer. And with people struggling to survive the collapse, the Venus Project will be the last thing on most people's minds. I can't be the only one who figured this out. As you probably know, many say the coming economic collapse will be so bad it'll make the Great Depression look like the lap of luxury. The collapse could include a third world war, an EMP apocalypse, billions of deaths, and severe damage to the Earth's biosphere. There's no way you can get a high-tech RBE out of that kind of mess. Yet certain RBE advocates continue to promote an RBE, even though most of them say economic collapse will be so severe it'll make an RBE impossible. What the frack? This massive cognitive dissonance is pissing me off. On the one hand, certain RBE advocates say they support an RBE. On the other hand, they say economic collapse will be so severe that an RBE will never happen. How can you advocate an RBE if you don't expect it to happen? This sort of absurdity makes me feel as if I'm trapped in the Twilight Zone, because in my mind, normal people wouldn't waste time supporting a movement they know will fail. Also, what about the Venus Project movie? If economic collapse happens before the Venus Project movie can be made, then the Venus Project movie won't be made. The movie would be a good way to let people know about the RBE alternative. But the way things are going now, it looks like the movie will never get made. And I actually donated $15 to the Venus Project. Maybe I should ask for a refund if they don't expect the Venus Project or the Venus Project movie to happen. I say if you support the Venus Project, you should also support mitigating economic collapse. That's why I support universal basic income. It won't stop economic collapse, but hopefully that and certain other mitigating efforts should make the collapse almost livable. If the severity of economic collapse could be reduced to that of the Great Depression, I would consider that a success, especially since an RBE should be possible under those conditions. In addition, an RBE is supposed to be about changing the world for the better. It's supposed to be a problem-solving society. The severity of economic collapse is another problem that needs to be solved. Yes, I'm aware that economic collapse is unavoidable. But the severity of the collapse needs to be reduced if we're going to transition to an RBE. When it comes to economic transition, I prefer what some would call a controlled demolition, where we phase into an RBE instead of experiencing something comparable to a post-nuclear holocaust where an RBE never happens. A lot of RBE technology already exists right now, like 3D printing, vertical farming, and the internet. It shouldn't be that hard to phase in an RBE. But the rich and powerful won't stand for it. That's true, but it still shouldn't be that hard to phase in an RBE. I'm going to continue to insist that ways be found to mitigate the effects of economic collapse so a resource-based economy can happen. We're supposed to be a highly adaptable species. We're not supposed to give up. We're supposed to come up with solutions that will maintain human survival. But the opposition to problem solving is a major reason why I'm constantly wishing to go to Mars one way. If I and a group of like-minded people go to Mars right now, if we could go to Mars right now, we could start an RBE when we get there and avoid the economic collapse of Earth. And like I said before, economic collapse is imaginary. Besides, I didn't go through the trouble of surviving cancer just so I could experience the end of the world. Fuck that shit! It seems to me that the biggest threat to an RBE are the RBE advocates who are more interested in seeing economic collapse than they are in making an RBE happen. Like Jacques Fresco is always saying, if you do nothing, nothing will happen. And if you do nothing about the severity of economic collapse, an RBE won't happen. Peace, the science out.